From the East Coast to the West Coast, we are everywhere true crime is. We are asking for the public's help. We are searching in the woods. We are doing what it takes here on the Bullhorn Betty channels to find answers to the most alarming cases we have been watching on the news. I can tell you personally that I have traveled this entire country seeking these answers and bringing that content right here to you here on the Bullhorn Betty channels and Bullhorn Betty Crime Stories. We are happy with the work that we've done. We brought many answers to the public, and we have defied mainstream media in our pursuit of the truth in these cases. We will continue to work. We will continue to fight for these victims, and we will continue to tell their stories here on my channels. Welcome to the Bullhorn Betty brand of channels and the Coffee Club. Thank you for your love, thank you for your support, and more importantly, thank you for allowing me to bring these victims' stories to each and every one of you, advocating for each of these victims. God bless you, God bless America, and more importantly, God bless our victims. There's a lot to go over today. So I'm Bullhorn Betty. We are covering the case of Sebastian Rogers. He's the 15-year-old child that's missing from Hendersonville, Tennessee, and this case is kind of a little crazy. There's some major things that we're going to go over. In the Nancy Grace, I don't know if you guys see behind me, I said I'm angry with Nancy Grace. People are like, what are you doing? You can't be mad at Nancy Grace. Nancy Grace is my BFF. You're right. But there were a couple things that we learned from the Nancy Grace, the newest interview she had with Seth and his new PR person, Tony Mathis. And they went on there to get the test results, the polygraph test results, and of course he passed. Well, they released a video, and I watched it from front to back to front, and something happened from one to another where a segment got added into this. Good morning, guys. It's nice to see you. Good morning. Sorry, I'm just getting right on to work because I've been up since 3 a.m. I've already done a show on the YouTube channel. And so I wanted to come over here and get you guys all squared away with everything that's been going on. And so I'm really pleased and happy. Oh, thank you, Steffi. I'm really pleased and happy he passed his polygraph test, which I anticipated anyways. But it was the statement from the polygraph person that took it, because when you do a polygraph test, you've got to kind of bare your soul with the polygraph person, right? You've got to tell them everything because they're about to question you on a bunch of stuff to see if you're telling the truth or lying. And so after the polygraph examination was over, this guy had some follow-up questions, and apparently under one of those follow-up questions, he asked Seth what he believes had happened. And Seth basically told him that he is part of this polygraph examination. Seth had told him that he thinks, because Sebastian had a hard time going to sleep, that he thought maybe Katie had given him a little bit of too much of his medication and something may have happened. So what upset me about the Nancy Grace, of course she's a big girl, right? So she can handle some criticism. Is the fact that I felt that those statements were made under confidentiality in an effort to garner the results of this test. And I thought unless, and hear me out, and I said this unless Seth had provided a statement, giving them permission to use this, then I really felt that this information, how he felt or what he felt happened to his son, should have came from him. Maybe he wanted them to break the silence for him so he didn't have to. But it doesn't sound like that. So, of course, I got a little bit of heat. People were saying, well, how do you know Seth didn't do it? I didn't know. I just felt like, as a human being, that's not something if I felt that way about somebody, I wouldn't want some person that does not know me or that person to be the one that breaks that information, if that makes sense. So I just thought it was a little weird, and I let it go at that. But I did find out that in fact Nancy Grace did not have permission to release that information, and they specifically asked her to remove it, and somewhere in editing a mistake happened. Okay. I know about those mistakes. I make them sometimes too. Oops. Did I do that? And so that's kind of why I'm a little perturbed with our beloved Nancy Grace. She's still my BFF. She hasn't lost no love from Bullhorn Betty. I just thought it was bad. I felt bad for Seth, because I know how hard Seth and his new spokesperson are really trying to tamper down and really trying to get Katie and Chris to work with them. I personally I think Chris is going to make up a million excuses why not to help or why not to work or whatever. I just really do. But at least they're trying, and then there was this. But then there wasn't just this. There's more, guys. There's more. But before we get over to the more, I'm hoping that you guys can help me. So this is my newest channel, Bullhorn Betty 2.0. It's not really a backup channel. It's going to be an active channel. I just dropped this video right here. I don't know if you see this. I didn't drop it on this channel here, so you need to go up there and follow me, right? You see how that works? This right here is going to blow your mind. If you have not seen this video where I say Katie Proudfoot bites her tongue, you need to go watch that. You need to go watch that. That's an important video. But the purpose of this is I need to get my followers up. This is our backup channel. Well, not really our backup channel. Like I said, it's going to be an active channel. So if you would like to go ahead and follow that, I would really greatly appreciate your love and support. And since you're following me on here anyways, why not? And actually, why not? I got Bullhorn Betty for president too, okay? I haven't really done anything with that for a little minute. But you really want to go see that, because that's going to blow your mind. And there's another thing that happened as well. Seth's mom is calling out Christopher Proudfoot. But before I read this one, I didn't even read what the spokesperson said to the Nancy Grace show. Let me get it pulled up here. Let me go back to that real quick so we can go through this. So this is what was said about the release of the information about the pharmaceuticals and his medication, and may have increased his medication to a level that may have been toxic for Sebastian. I think that's TikTok approved. Holden, I'm very disappointed in you and Nancy both. You gave me your word nothing would be released to make the Proudfoots look bad. Nancy also stopped the show, and when I had Seth get off, she promised both of us that she would cut the part out about Seth accusing Katie, and she went ahead and released it. She clearly stated she wanted to put no more stress on him, and she did it anyways. She's lost our total trust. And that came from Tony Mathis, the spokesperson. And that's why I said I'm mad at her, because I didn't know all this when I actually did the thumbnail and did a whole live on why I was mad at Nancy Grace, which, I'm upset with her as, doing this and knowing the true gravity of what really is on the line when it comes to this case, because Sebastian's been missing for a significant amount of time. A lot of us believe that the Proudfoots have something to do with it. We're uncovering some things that don't make the Proudfoots or the Bowersox really look good. You know what I'm saying? And so the pressure is starting to mount, and they really need Chris and Katie helping them, because at the end of the day, they probably hold a lot of the answers. And so trying to tamper down everything so they can start working together toward a meaningful resolution. These things keep popping up, and it's just a way for Chris Proudfoot to find another excuse not to help, not to assist, and to run away. He's been sitting here blaming every single person for everything that is coming out as it's their fault. This is not our life. These are not our skeletons. These are their skeletons. And yes, when you have a missing 15-year-old boy that you cannot produce, those skeletons come to light. So if there's more skeletons, they will be found. So there's no need to get upset about it. Either produce the boy and get us all out of everybody's life, or you're just going to have to go through this process, because this is the process. It's going through in public and public as well as behind the scenes. So I was a little upset about that, but there was another statement that was in here basically stating, and I want to read this to you. I think it's the first one here. Maybe not. I thought I sent it to myself. I missed it. But anyways, it was somebody that had posted something to the effect that for Seth to even think about that, like to even think Katie could do that, is problematic. And I have to be honest with you, I'm a nosy person, so I like to have that context, but I still feel bad for the case, because this was something that was asked not to be made public. He provided those responses in a confidential environment, and that confidentiality was violated. So I really that's the only thing I have a problem with. Now we're going to get on to Seth's mom. So Seth's mom has wrong one. Seth's mom has a bunch to say about the Proudfoots. And she's obviously highly upset about what's going on. So I wanted to read you here what Seth's mom, the grandmother to Sebastian Rogers, had to say. Shame on Chris Proudfoot and shame on Cluminati, who reportedly speaks with him daily. How dare you make a mockery of my grandson's disappearance? But we all know how you really felt about Sebastian and how you treated him. CPS records do not lie. And Katie, you know exactly what happened to Sebastian. Your smart mouth husband said so early on in the investigation. The longer this goes on, the worse the outcome for you. We will find him. Stern words coming from Grandma. Stern words coming from Grandma. You know who you don't hear stern words coming from? The Proudfoots, the Bowersocks. Unless you're a searcher, then you get stern words. Unless you're out there actually looking and putting stuff up, or being able to put a puzzle piece together, like, just about everybody. Apparently you're wrong. But I have to believe that this is how, that everybody is coming to realization that this child did not just walk out the door. We saw him coming into the house. We've never seen him leave. Law enforcement has absolutely gone silent. They have absolutely ghosted the crap out of the public. Nobody knows anything. We don't know if this case is cold, if they're still following leads, if they need help from the public, if they have a person of interest in mind, several of them. Have they found any evidence that could garner a lead to his whereabouts? Law enforcement has ghosted their community. And when I start seeing this, I start saying, hey, it is an election season. It is an election season, and you've got a 15-year-old autistic boy that you were told by your elected officials is merely out walking around. And that there's no foul play, and they've done no forensics on a house where a child with special needs disappeared from, even though he disappeared under unusual circumstances. And I say unusual because we know there was something going on around his house around 3 a.m. And the unusual circumstances obviously rose to the level of being able to hit the criteria of an Amber Alert. So why are they ghosting the public? Do they not think that the public has, a right to know what's going on in their own community? Whether they have a predator out there going into homes, sneaking into homes and taking kids out of homes, or whether there's no threat to the community. And if there's no threat to the community, how do you know there's no threat to the community? Because you can't even tell us what happened to this kid. So are you lying to your public by silence? Or is there really an investigation going on? Because there's a lot of people that feel uncomfortable that Chris Proudfoot has family that's active in law enforcement and may very well be active in that very law enforcement department that's handling this investigation. And I think that's a real concern for a lot of people, especially ones that have personally witnessed corruption in their own counties. It does, it's an uncomfortable feeling. And see, we pay our politicians, especially our sheriffs and our deputy sheriffs, a pretty good salary to do and have to handle the tough stuff, right? The tough stuff. And sometimes the tough stuff is having to be beat up by the public for not being able to tell them more. But it's still showing up. That's what you get paid for. It's not just the work, it's also the public relations. And they're failing in the public relations. And you know what people may say? Oh, well, it doesn't matter. They're doing an investigation. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It does matter. It does matter. Because again, this is taxpayer funded stuff, and we don't even know if they're doing a good investigation. If there is an investigation, we have no proof that they're still investigating anything. Over a month ago, when we talked to them, they basically stated that there's no new leads coming in. So if there's no new leads coming in and they've got nothing to investigate, that is the definition of a cold case. So do we have a cold case here? Can they answer those questions? See, these are the types of questions that we could get from, say, a news, them coming to the podium and having a press conference and giving them an opportunity. There's going to be a lot of questions that they're going to have to say, we can't answer, we can't answer, we can't answer. But what about the questions that you might be able to? And they're like, oh, well, send us an email. But the public's not hearing an email. The public's hearing you at a press conference when they're all tuned in. So this is not making sense. So there is absolutely no updates on the Sebastian Rogers case from law enforcement. So I don't know if this is a cold case. I don't know if they've now moved on to another missing persons child case. Obviously they told us there's no foul play involved. So, while we're sitting here looking at the parents, how do we even know this missing person file isn't collecting dust? We don't. We have no idea. We know there's no criminal investigation, and they haven't found him missing, and there's no searches. So is the case just did it get filed away because there's no movement? I'm not going to sit here and cover a law enforcement's butt. I'm going to use their own words that they told us, and they told us there's no foul play. This is not a criminal investigation, and they can't locate the missing boy, and they have no searches and no leads. So it sounds to me like this case is in a file folder in a filing cabinet, collecting dust. That's not a comfortable place that I think any community member wants to be in, hearing something like that. And nothing to the contrary. And that's what we're being told. So no updates on Sebastian. Now, one of the other things that we have going on is the searchers. Is the one? Yeah. So the searchers. There have been, since, and this is why I said, everybody was trying to beat up on that Tony Mathis, the gentleman that's now their spokesperson for their, that's working with Seth and would love to work with Katie and Chris. So they have one united front before the public, but as you can see, it doesn't seem like Chris is really wanting to participate anything related to Sebastian. It didn't sound like he wanted to participate anything related to Sebastian when he was here, and now that he's gone, he's just like, good riddance. Let's run away as quickly as we can before he comes back, right? So obviously there's been some changes on the team to try to redirect and get some focus back on Sebastian and really doing some work for Sebastian. For example, they, ended up getting some PIs. One of the PIs has left. They ended up getting a spokesperson for Seth, which again, that's Tony Mathis, and would love to be the spokesperson for the entire family, but it doesn't sound like that's going to work. But either way, he's got a plan. He wants to get some dog handlers out there that have some really grade A dogs, cadaver as well as scent dogs. One lady had 4 bloodhounds that she privately, her and her husband took a private plane over here, over to Tennessee to aid. And when they got there, Chris turned her away. After Chris asking, they're going out there and getting on all these TV, these interviews. When they were doing that, asking for the public's help, and the public showed up. This was a person that didn't have a channel, that's her and her husband spent this out of their own dime to bring these dogs in. They brought their best of the best over. Her husband's in law enforcement. And they get there and start walking, and their bloodhounds start taking them in a different direction, and that's when Chris kind of approached him. And when you're hearing this interview on J is for Justice on YouTube, you don't hear you hear her say she wasn't even on the Proudfoot's property. It was just that she was going in a different direction, and that's when Chris stopped her. And she said she felt a little intimidated. And he basically kicked her out and told her, you can't come here, you can't search there, all of this, that, and the other. And she's like, sir, I'm here to help search for your son. And yes. And she's got her private jet from California to Tennessee because they would not put the dogs in the crate. They wanted to make sure their dogs were healthy. And they get out there, and Chris literally stops them. But the one thing that we could deduct from this is that the dogs went into a different direction than the law enforcement dogs. And so now they're saying they want to go back. So they were cleared by TBI. Here. Let me go over the dog handlers. You guys they're impressive. They're impressive. So the dog handlers, one, Seth sent a certificate. Okay, so at 1:35 on this dog handler interview with J is for Justice, like 1 hour and 35 minutes into the podcast, this dog handler calls in, and her name is Julia, and this is the first one, and she was the most highly credentialed, and I kept thinking she had a dog from like the Secret Service, but one of her dogs is from the Department of Defense. She's called in when they need to bring in a handler. She was just in Pennsylvania in a prison doing a search with her dog. So, she's obviously all over the country. She's highly credentialed and obviously able to go into secured facilities. She she said she was in the Army. She's been a handler in the Army. She just goes through, and she's got a cadaver dog as well as a scent dog, but her scent dog, she said, is her pride and joy. His name's Gator, and that's the one from the Department of Defense, and is bomb trained and everything like that. And I can't remember what it was, but can smell not like substances like street substances, pharmaceutical substances. This dog's nose is so good, he can find your prescription pills. And so she was going to be brought out there, and Chris wanted to know her credentialing, and so she ended up sending all of her credentialing, even she's credentialed with the FBI, over to Seth to give to Chris, and Chris still turned her down and would not let her proceed out to Tennessee to search for Sebastian. So the next caller, the one that flew her dogs out there, that had the 4 bloodhounds, and her husband flew private jet over to Tennessee with the 4 bloodhounds because they didn't want them in cages while they flew, the dogs, because they're their babies, they're their pride and joys. And thousands and thousands of dollars, by the way. TBI cleared them as well. Her husband's in law enforcement and not beat cop law enforcement, higher up the food chain in law enforcement. Her response when she met him is that she felt a little intimidated, and that she felt CP, this is her and her husband. Now, remember, her husband's law enforcement, feels that Christopher Proudfoot is playing games. So they followed us in the different direction to a specific area, and this is another person that claimed that his family, Chris Proudfoot's family, were threatening them, following them, and trying to discourage them from searching for Sebastian. That comes right from them. So I want to enlighten people because, we are keeping this about Sebastian Rogers. We are keeping this about Sebastian Rogers. Sebastian Rogers is very important in this, but we also have to decipher whether we feel he walked out the door or whether we feel, he was met with foul play. And even though law enforcement may not say he's met with foul play for whatever reasons, they cannot disclose that. We here can absolutely deduct that these stories do not make sense. We definitely know for a fact, corroborated information, that Sebastian came home and was home that night. We've got him going into the home, but we do not have him coming out of the home. Period. That's very problematic. And then we have, Katie, this whole interview with Katie, and I know this is kind of promoting my second 2.0 channel, but you need to watch that video. It's this one right here that says Katie Proudfoot bites her tongue. You have to watch that video, because that video really embodies everything that happened up front and why we are in this case right now. It's that very first interview, day 8, that they gave, the green shirt interview. That is that. Now, as I said, that the searcher talked about being followed and being threatened by Chris's family. She didn't specifically say Chris or Katie. She said his family. So, and she didn't even say friends. She said family. His family threatened and followed and discouraged me and other searchers. That's what she said. But this right here, this thumbnail here, is not, and I repeat, not related to the threats that this dog handler is alleging. So I don't know when this phone call happened, but you remember how we were talking about one of the PIs that left Seth's team. That PI's name is Heather Cohen. And she is with, that Justice something, I can't remember. I've said it before on here. I can't remember, something Justice Investigations or something like that. Well, she's an investigator that left. Well, she got a call. I don't know how this call came about. I have to assume, which I don't like assuming, so I'm going to say I'm assuming to you, but I really don't know. It sounds like Chris Proudfoot called Heather. It doesn't sound like Heather called Chris. And in this interview, he goes and threatens Chloe. And Chloe is the second investigator on the case that works with Seth. And she's, she's a nice, she seems very nice. She's a lovely female. She holds herself well. She speaks well. She looks young, and she looks like she could be intimidated very easily. Just my observations. She's very quiet. She doesn't try to ruffle feathers. She tries to keep things calm. It seems like that's her norm. Like, she likes calm. But Chris threatened her that he was going to slap her. And he also threatened because apparently Bobby Simmons is an investigator in TBI. And I guess Seth and TBI are starting to talk again. I guess there was some really, like I said, a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of contention behind the scenes that nobody really knows about. And so we only see what we see on these on these podcasts or these interviews or these news segments and stuff like that, but we really don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And I know there was a lot of hostility between Seth and law enforcement because, as a father of a missing child, not getting any answers from law enforcement, it's got to be very discouraging. It's got to be a hopeless and helpless feeling that only those in that position know anything about. So I'm sure Seth, in his, Papa Bear, probably has been a little disgruntled with them, as you can probably imagine. And I'm sure if they've done this before, they're probably used to emotions, coming out in people, especially when there could potentially be a crime committed. It's actually, not only did Chris threaten to slap Chloe, apparently this Bobby Simmons must know something. And Chris decides to tell Heather that if Seth opens his mouth if Bobby Simmons tells Seth and Seth opens his mouth, Seth will never open his mouth moving forward. And that was very concerning for a lot of people, especially in light of, Christopher Proudfoot having a missing child that they can't explain. And so those are the threats that I'm talking about here. We went over them this morning on my morning show, my coffee club show over on YouTube. Actually, it really wasn't the coffee club show. My coffee club starts really, really super early that I put on the back burner while I'm trying to build up these channels here on TikTok. And so I go back live. I'm trying to go back live in the morning, but it's so hard because so much research goes into all of this stuff. And of course, setting up the equipment and to go live from our YouTube channel. So I just did a live just like this from bed. So that's why you still see me in my pajamas. I never quite made it up to get dressed, put makeup on or anything. I got teeth brushed and I got a latte. Okay, that's it. And I've been working ever since. And then I wanted to go through everything that I had not had an opportunity to go over with you guys here on TikTok and just really break this stuff down, because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I know it upsets that I don't engage in a whole lot of the conspiracy theories, because people want to help put the puzzle piece together, but the problem is that I'm really trying to search and look at maps and look. I don't have the time. If I could have, I'd love to start thinking and really do it, but I just don't have, not with this case. In some cases we do, but this case for me is not the one that I can do that with, because I'm so invested in trying to look at paths and stuff like that. I think this one is kind of hitting me a little close to home because it's, Summer Wells was in Tennessee, and this has a lot of hallmarks of Summer Wells, more so than many of us really think. Outside of the essay type allegations, but we have like the abuse here. And then we have Chris and the way he's acting, like he can control through intimidation, and then he starts calling people names. And, I think we've even heard him on Web Sleuth. I think he was, a little intoxicated on that. It's just like his behavior, it really is starting to mimic that of Don Wells. And that it terrifies me even more, because when I start seeing all these behaviors, I know I try to instill hope in everybody, but it just makes me know that something really bad happened to this boy. And I pray to God that we find out, or at least are able to find Seth some information so he can know what happened. But thank you, Priscilla. Good morning to you too, Love Bug. So that's kind of where we are with this case, guys. This is not a good case. I think somebody brought up, There's a case in Indiana for disappearance, baby Maya parents being charged. Oh, let me go back up real quick. Never found, being charged and found, never found baby. Well, we just had Adam Montgomery, right? He went down. Corey Bigsby, that's Cody Bigsby's father. The West parents. It's all over this country. It seems like from state to state, we have the states that know how to take circumstantial evidence and get these bad guys off the streets when they don't have the remains or, a body to prosecute on or to see what happened, what truly happened. And it may just be second degree, but as opposed to leaving them out for, 20 or 30 years to live their life, it's just, I don't understand why Tennessee doesn't get it. I don't understand why Tennessee is so far behind the 8 ball. We have all these other states. I don't know. I don't even know if they even have ever prosecuted a nobody in Tennessee. I think I looked into it during Summer Wells, and I remember thinking it was grim then, but I haven't really looked at the numbers since, and I don't think they have. Or they don't know. I always hear it's so much harder. Yes, it's so much harder. If you need to know, you're never going to do it. You got to make the mistakes. It's as sad and as messed up as it is. You got to lose a few to create the secret sauce to win the rest. But if you're not willing to lose a few, you're never going to get where you need to be to help the rest. I mean, but they need to start doing something in Tennessee. This is getting ridiculous. It's like there's a instruction book that goes around these crap parents. It's like somebody stands on the corner. Are you crap parent? Yeah, I am. Okay, well, here's how you get rid of your kid. Move to Tennessee. So that's really all I had. I had some major things here. I think we covered all of them. Nancy Grace, the polygraph results. For those that are just tuning in, as obviously Seth passed. There were statements that were supposed to be removed that were leaked on the Nancy Grace show, and it highly upset Seth, his spokesperson, as well as, quite frankly, me, because I thought it was unprofessional. And, you get things legitimately, shoe leather, somebody wants to leak you some information. That's one thing, you know what I'm saying? But to take somebody's statement under confidentiality and release that to the public, I thought was in poor taste. And so that's my complaint with the Nancy Grace show. But I still love Nancy Grace. She's still my BFF. We have BHB 2.0. You need to get over there because we have a video that's about Katie biting her tongue, and you need to watch that. Seth's mom calls out Chris Proudfoot and Cluminati in their poor display of how they're handling stuff there on YouTube. There's we got a statement from media that law enforcement basically says that there's no update on Sebastian. Dog searchers were kicked off out of the search by Chris Proudfoot, and Chris Proudfoot has now threatened one of publicly, and we have it recorded, Seth and his PI Chloe with physical harm. So that's kind of the round out for today. For the, I'll be back throughout the day, but that's a lot. And, Chris is out here, can't understand why all of us are so upset and hot under the collar about him and Katie. They're hiding when they should be looking. I don't know what else to say than that. They're hiding when they should be looking. So I hope that if you guys got something out of these daily lives, please don't keep my name a secret. Share me around. Go over to the 2.0 account. If you like politics, you like my kind of politics, go over and hit Bullhorn Betty up for president, right? Because, I should be president. Everybody knows that, right? Ha, ha, ha. Okay, I'm just joking. But I have some good commentary, all right? All right, I have some good commentary. You might like it. You might like it. Let me, before we close out, let me just go through here. I'm going to get down to the bottom and work my way up. so I don't miss anybody. So Chris is cracking. That's what I said. The pressure's starting to get to him. Oh, that's what you guys missed, and I didn't say this here. Is I've talked about this on because I have more now that I know I can do these lives and stuff like that. I'm coming over here and explaining these more, to you. But Chris, before when we started looking into the household, and looking behind the scenes, we do, that's what we do. We look behind the scenes. We look behind the scenes through as much public record and information that's out there on the internet as possible. And so we see a clear picture that things don't seem as they are. There's a facade here. Things are going on behind that house behind those doors that we don't know about. That was clear up front. So there was a clear spiraling of a family dynamic that was leading up to this boy disappearing. And if you've followed me for any significant of time, I talk about these spiraling effects and events that happened before, say, a child coming up missing, a spouse coming up injured, meeting their demise, fatally injured, those types of things. You see a spiraling effect going on behind the scenes. So I saw that, but whenever we saw the Web Sleuth's interview and we saw Chris kind of come out and he was so angry and he seemed a little bit intoxicated and stuff like that, I told people right then and there, I said, guys, this is the start of the spiral. This is where the pressure is starting to build from all fronts. The deceptions, the lies, the skeletons in the closet, they're all coming to rear their ugly head, and they're all coming like a tidal wave right at them and literally crashing over them. If you guys are from California and you guys have the surfboard, waves, and somebody falls off, they try to get up, the other wave's coming right behind them and knocking them right back down, right? So that's the pressure. That's the only way I can really describe the pressure that Katie and Chris are going through. So what happens is the pressure becomes so much, they try to start controlling it. And as they start controlling it and realizing it's out of their control, they start getting angry and mean, and they start trying to use acts of intimidation to control the narrative or to do this. Some people they won't use anger. They'll use kindness and sweetness and a poor me, like, I can't believe they're being so mean to me, type stuff. Chris is on the other end. He's going major aggressive, major intimidation. He's really starting to show his true colors out here. And now that they've already poked out, us seeing them go back in, or Chris turning back into the person that he was up until the Web Sleuth's point, I don't see that happening. So we're going to see more of this. I truly believe that Chris is a volcano ready to erupt personally. I think he can only deal with so much because that's just the way he is. And I don't think he realizes he's not going to be able to control that either. So I believe that there was a court hearing. I haven't gotten the results of it. I have seen the docket, but I haven't seen any type of orders or any type of entry in there as to what really happened at that court hearing. She's SO and a few other charges. Her mom's background. Yeah, and that's another thing. That's why he threatened Chloe, because he acts like Chloe got that somehow when he told her that he didn't put this out. Like, I was sitting there with her sister's stuff. I'm pretty sure I know exactly who broke that, and it was long before Chloe ever went on Web Sleuths. If one of them were innocent, the innocent one would have left the relationship by now. You damn right. You damn right. But you know what, guys? I have to be honest with you. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm looking at Chris as much now as I'm looking at Katie. Like, there's something wrong there. Like, I'm starting to feel like Chris is her protector now. I'm starting to see some different things where, there's always been we've had 3 different theories, and one of those has been knocked out. So my first theory was that Chris was home that weekend and he's the one that had the rage fit, and something happened inside that home after they came back from the steakhouse. We learned that by corroborated evidence, not because law enforcement corroborated it, is because of shoe leather work that we've been able to corroborate the fact that Christopher Proudfoot was not home that weekend. He was not home that weekend. So theory 1's out the window. My theory 2 was that Chris was on the phone with Katie for the 3 hours so he knew when she would go to sleep so he could sneak back in the house and take care of his problem. I still believe that there is a plausible thought for that because everybody's looking at those lights. Everybody's saying that's a floodlight. What if that was a motorcycle light? I'm just saying. We don't know really what happened. Is it plausible? Not just saying that he could have came back in the motorcycle. He could have brought his car, but I'm thinking the motorcycle's the one that doesn't really have a box on it. And Chris would have been thinking about that. And I don't know if his motorcycle was with him in Mississippi or if it was here at the house. I don't know. I never asked the question. It's just a theory, right? So don't beat me up for my theories. But my third theory, which obviously number 3 tells you, implies where it was on the list of my possibilities, right? Was that Katie snapped and was freaking out. And she was on the phone with Chris for 3 hours while he made it back, trying to calm her down, trying to get her to do this, trying to get her to do that, walking through all of this, walking through all of that. And with that theory, I believe that the 3 a.m. lights was actually Katie coming back, not them going out. Because the 3 a.m. coming back is the only way we can explain Chris being at work on time. And it also, based on that theory, it would also imply that somebody else would have had to help them because somebody would have had to take Katie back to the house. He would have had no time. At 3-something in the morning, he would have had no time to be back on his job at 5:15 in the morning. There's no time. So those are the 3 theories, and one's off. So now we have the third theory, which is starting to, rear its ugly head. I've been watching the polls. We've been having polls on Twitter. We've been having polls. I think I saw polls on Instagram. I may have looked at a different platform. And I know they have polls on YouTube. And I've been watching all these polls come in. And the polls originally, when they were, a month or longer ago, or even just a few weeks ago, the polls were pointed directly at Chris Proudfoot. They believe he was because motive means an opportunity. He's the only one that seemed to dislike this kid so much. But I've seen a change in the polls. Where it used to be Chris or both. Now it's like Katie or both. Like people are starting to twist their theories around. I don't know which way it is. All I know is this boy appears to have gone in that house and never have left. And that concerns me. And you've got 2 parents that have been caught in multiple lies. You have 2 parents that have changed the timeline several times publicly. You have 2 parents that are running off and have ran off from like 2 weeks into the investigation, which I have never in my life ever seen. Even in Summer Wells, they weren't that stupid. They went shopping for motorcycles. That's about as insane as that sea run, that crack-a-lack-a-lack that Don Wells said he got $2,000 and went on that crackling run. I don't know what else to call it. I gotta be TikTok safe here. I gotta be TikTok safe. If you guys can't figure that out, it's a derivative of Coca-Cola. Crackling. Figure it out. And Don Wells went on. It's about as asinine as that. It's about as stupid as that. To go shop and her to get off the motorcycle and something. Oh my gosh. Oh, holy crap. I cannot believe I didn't think about this. Oh my gosh. Somebody wrote me. I can't remember who it is, but even if I did, I probably wouldn't tell you. But somebody wrote to my my email, which is bullhornbetty@gmail.com. And they wanted to give me their perspective about the whole motorcycle thing. And my mouth fell open and I'm like, I never even thought about it. I think it was a woman that wrote it too. She's like, did you ever think maybe he's trying to get her on a motorcycle so they can go on one of those motorcycle runs or rides and she just has an accident and all his problems are gone. I'm like, Katie, you might want to be careful buying that motorcycle. I'm just saying. Do what you do, girl. I ain't riding next to that. If I'm riding anyway, it's going to be on the same bike as him because he ain't taking him. Can you imagine driving that? You got your Tennessee, right? Think about it. Mountains, right? Husband comes right on up, sees a perfect spot, takes the foot out and just kicks. She went off the mountain. How did that happen? I should stop. But Katie, I would not be, Put me in a car with a bunch of airbags. That's with both of y'all. Chris, I wouldn't get on that motorcycle because I don't know who did it. I don't know. It might be reversed. It might be Katie trying to get the motorcycle so she can get off the back of him so she can knock him over the mountain. Guys, I wouldn't be riding those motorcycles together. I just wouldn't. You getting on a motorcycle today, honey? I got my new motorcycle. Let's go for a ride. My motorcycle's sick. What do you mean your motorcycle's sick? They won't crank up. I want to crank up. I don't know. Probably ripped all the spark plugs out and turned the gas off. Just thinking outside the box. I don't know. I wouldn't be on a motorcycle around them. I'm just saying. I ain't doing it. You know, you guys are adults. You can make your own decisions. It's just a suggestion, but I always like to remind people about my suggestions. You know, on a parachute, it's just suggested that you pull the cord before you hit the ground. But, you know, again, nobody's forcing you to pull the cord. Just saying. So there you guys have it. That's really all I had. I hope you guys got something out of this, but there's a lot going on here. It's not normal. I think that's... I think we're seeing a very clear, and listen to this, law enforcement is too. These dog handlers were in communication with TBI the whole time. So they absolutely know the behavior of Chris and Katie, without a doubt. It might be, TGIF, thank you guys. Yes, TGIF, you guys. No, the car's not fixed. I don't even want to talk about it right now. I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't even think about it. I think if all I do is, what is this? Okay. All I do is absolutely nothing but, you know, just try and whatnot. So I don't know what's going to go on with the car. I really don't. It kind of sucks a little bit, but it'll be fine. You know, I guess it'll be fine. We'll see I shouldn't say that. I don't know what's going on. I'm a nervous wreck over the car because it only had a chug and it came out inoperable. And I can't believe that in everything that he said it would be to fix it hasn't been what it is to fix it. I don't know if I'll ever have my car back right again. I'm nervous as hell at this point. But we'll get through it. That's all we can do, right? So it is what it is. It's called life. So we'll work through it the best we can and just stay focused. And you know what I do when things get tough is I work my butt off. So if you guys notice I'm around a little bit more, it's because of that. All right, guys. God bless you. Take care, and we'll see you soon.